you know.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to traders? Because obviously, as someone who hasn't gone through it, but you obviously have a very good understanding of trading and understanding of what it takes. What would you say to those traders who are struggling with funding, especially given the landscape now post MFF?
If you take that question again.
So in regards to like, what would your advice be to the traders who are struggling in terms of the funding? Maybe treating it like we just discussed, like trying to gamble it too much, not using that accountability to their favor.
You see, when it comes to aspects of, let's say, trading psychology, discipline, you know, maybe because of my brief experience and, you know, plight into the army, I kind of know that it's an indrawn thing, you know. For anybody who is indisciplined, they chose to be indisciplined, you know. It's just about time they feel that continuous pain before they change that attitude, you know. So I'm more of that very strict, you know, mentor, like I say it as it is type of a person, you know that you're not supposed to do this, but you're asking that, okay, how can I manage my risk? Like, how can I reduce my loss? That's not a question like I expect that anybody should ask. You should be accountable for your own self. So in relation to funding, right, we still will draw it down to opportunity, you know, rather than if you ask me now, I'm starting from scratch and then I have access to, let's say, a $200 account,
yes,
right, and then the opportunity cost of that is purchasing, let's say, 100,000 prop account, right? Of course, I also know that if I have the $200, then whatever return I make on it, it's like for me now, but for the prop, it's an opportunity to test my skills.
Yeah.
Because if I fail at that point, the 200 is gone. I feel it. But if I pass through that mail and I make it, then I have access to, like, you know. So I like for people to assess those two logic, you know, and see. For some people, they've built their skills around account flipping, you know. And I think it was pretty much the same with you did mention of a trader that exposes 50% of the account, right? I know their track record, right? From that part of I'd say the sub region, right? They are big on flipping. That's why it's easy for such a person to do that. They don't think they're nothing like account management. The trading capital is their risk. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
If it's a $2,000 in that account, that is a stop loss.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and then if that money can literally go to 10,000, 20,000. Or
what do you think about the longevity of that? Though?
So,
do you think you can actually, you know, have like a strategy so it's profitable, or do you feel like it's like it is always a gamble? So there's always going to be, you know, huge amounts of risks.
I've seen people that have really succeeded with that. You know, the line that I'll draw is the aftermath of the income. You know, for most people, for most traders, we are always interested in, okay, the process, the money, but we're not really thinking about like the aftermath. Okay, after you get the money, how are you managing it? How is it sustaining you? So because if you're a trader and then you're able to take 5,000 to 50,000, you have a huge, you know, base ground to start something strong. You know, so I've had people who have had like long runs in that and then done good stuff with their life, and have had people who have had long runs that and then failed. It all boiled down to what they did with the money they had at the end.
So do you feel like the people who actually use the money wisely to invest and create these like we talked about these foundations, versus people who might flip, buy stuff and just keep flipping the money, eventually just has that.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Makes a lot of sense.
So it's hard for me to like pick up and say,
just say no.
Don't.
Yeah. But this is what I was saying. Like sometimes it's hard as a human being, like just to be like not to give your opinion.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
but I try my best to understand, especially with trading, but just generally as well. There's always a million ways to do something. Right. Especially in trading, like this, anything can work. Right. Especially anything can work. Yeah. Some things like to an individual might be hard to hear and hard to understand. So I never write anything off. Right. Yeah. I just try to highlight where I'm thinking this, you know, is a potential flaw in the system. Right. But what you explained there really does make sense, because then obviously if they've invested the capital they've used or flipped to, in some way so that they have a nice foundation, a nice income source outside of trading. Then that way, if they do fail, they haven't essentially failed. They failed in the trading endeavor, which would still be painful.
Yes.
But obviously, they haven't failed overall in life. Versus the people who use the cash to buy things that aren't assets.
Yes.
But then also keep all the rest of the money in the trading account. So if they fail, they're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,